Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Melinda Herring, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Eurasia Center at the Atlantic Council in Washington, D.C. I'm really delighted to be hosting this event today, What to Expect in Ukraine in 2022. I have four fantastic experts. I have my boss, Ambassador John Herbst, the former ambassador to Ukraine. I have Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk, and he's now the head of the Kyiv Security Forum and a great friend of ours. I have Kira Rudik, who's the head of the Holos Party and a frequent guest of ours as well. Welcome, Kira. And finally, my great friend, Vitaly Shabunin. He is the chairman of the Anti-Corruption Action Center, the greatest watchdog in Kyiv, Ukraine. They are so loud. They are so wonderful. If you don't follow their website, shame on you. Be sure to have a look at their website. It's constantly being updated. So today, I brought these four fantastic people together to talk about what's going on in Ukraine. We're all very, very focused on the foreign policy situation, obviously on the Russian escalation, but there's more to the story than that, and we're missing part of the story. So I'd like to dive right into it. Prime Minister Yatsenyuk, you only are here with us for 15 minutes, and I'm really grateful for your time, but I'd like to go straight to one of the big issues in Kyiv. President Poroshenko recently came back to Kyiv, and he's being held on really serious charges. He faces high treason charges. If he's convicted, what does that say about Ukraine's Western drive? Do you worry about international support for Ukraine, as it looks like the judicial system is being used against political opponents now? The floor is yours, sir.
Well, first, thanks for having me. And I want to use this as a chance to say really thank you to the American people, to the US administration, and to the Atlantic Council. You really support Ukraine. You know, friend in need is a friend indeed. And the last visit of Secretary Blinken was an amazing sign of real strong support and unwavering support of the US administration of the Ukrainian territorial integrity and Ukrainian sovereignty. In terms of President Poroshenko, look, here is the thing. The good news is that yesterday, just the time Secretary Blinken paid his visit to Kyiv, the judge ruled more or less, I would say, acceptable verdict. Because then the administration anticipated that the judge would put President Poroshenko behind the bars. In terms of these criminal charges, look, this is a completely both legal and political nonsense. President Poroshenko is accused and charged of what? Of high treason? Well, I know the guy who can applaud this and make claps. President Putin. He is the beneficial owner of all this crazy stuff that is happening. So I still believe that on the one hand, President Poroshenko will defend. On the other hand, he has to win. And actually, the Ukrainian judicial system has to be impartial. And we expect that the legal reform will be already, or at least accomplished, both the legal reform and anti-corruption reform, which are needed for Ukraine.
Super, thank you. Vitaly, same question. So if Poroshenko is convicted on these high treason charges, what does that mean for the Western project and for international support? What's your take?
The point here is that even if Poroshenko will be convicted, even if no one believes that, no one believes in fair justice. I just will quote one message from the Office of the President on that issue, on this case. And they officially told that Poroshenko misused his procedural rights. The problem is that at the same day, the team of the same president, I mean Zelenskyy, not just misused, they raped the procedural code, saving from the corruption, saving the deputy head of the administration staff, Mr. Tatarov, when NABU accused the guy on corruption crime. And for saving Tatarov, for saving the deputy of Yermak, Zelenskyy team raped the criminal procedure code. They misused Secret Service, Office of the Prosecutor, State Investigation Bureau, and few courts. it's not about justice when you are fighting with your first political opponent. And at the same time, you are protecting your own guys from the justice. I am not a big fan of Poroshenko, you know that. I was one who criticized him. But in this case, it's not even about his guiltiness, if he is guilty or he is not. Zelensky and his team have done everything for not to be trusted, even if Poroshenko is guilty. No one believes in that. That's the problem.
Okay, thanks a lot. Mr. Yatsenuk, help us understand, why is this happening now? So Ukraine, from where we sit in Washington, it seems like Ukraine is very, very vulnerable. Ukraine is surrounded by Russian troops, at least 100,000, maybe 140,000. It looks like Putin may go in. Why is Zelensky going after his opponents through the courts?
You know, the problem of this incumbent president is that the only calculation he has in mind is his approval rating. So he believes that this is the way how to boost. You know, people in the world are talking about boosters of a COVID vaccine. This is the booster, he believes, for his approval rating, which is completely crazy idea. Instead of delivering unity to this country, instead of asking all political forces, whether they are in opposition or in the government, whether they are in the house or outside the house, to be united, to stand shoulder to shoulder against the Russian aggression, administration is playing some crazy political tricks with Poroshenko case, and not only Poroshenko case.
You're absolutely right. I want to bring Kira in on this. So I understand, in addition to the Poroshenko case, that your political party, Holos, has run into some trouble recently as well, some harassment. Could you tell us more about that, Kira?
Yes. Hello, everyone. It's good to be here. And yes, Holos Party is an opposition party. Recently had run into some issues. It started at the end of the last year, and it was related to our party finances. And it was done right after we were promised that we will run into the internal investigation bureaus, that we will have these problems. So it was actually very fast. First, we got some threats from the president's office, and then the State Bureau of Investigation started actually investigating, and it happened right before the New Year's. The second point is the way how the head of our faction, the parliamentary faction, I'm just telling you, like the parliamentary faction that operates by its internal rules, at the last 5 minutes of the parliamentary sessions, the coalition party members, Sluha Narodu party members, got into the room and they said, we have a decision of the court that we are changing the head of your faction. So we are changing the head of the faction that we had before to a different one. So it is impossible in democratic country. It's impossible and unspeakable in any other country. And now we see it in Ukraine. Why? And we were warned by Zelensky and his party. We were warned by the office of the president that it will happen. What we see right now, again, the timing for all the attempts to prosecute opposition is very poor. We understand that it weakens the nation, it weakens our country, and it creates so many unnecessary divisions that we promised to stand up against. So right now, and I'm telling it with all the openness, I'm ready to forget whatever happened in the last year. I'm ready to fight for justice for everybody, not for just for heads of political parties that are being prosecuted. And I went public and I supported Mr. Poroshenko, and I supported generally people's fight for unity and against any political prosecution, because this is what I think we need right now, to forget about political differences for some time, for 2 months, for 3 months, and even work with Zelensky and his team if it's necessary. So we would have the united front, the united the united voice, because there is lots of things were said and done during the last 2 years of our work in the parliament. But honestly, right now, it doesn't really matter if we wouldn't have a country and a parliament to fight in, and to have our different political approaches and different views and different opinions. That's why our position right now is we are ready to put on hold everything that happened last year. And we are really ready to join forces with whoever is ready to fight for Ukraine, to conclude all the things that we need to do to be able to get out stronger.
Super.
And I don't, but I don't see that president and his party are ready for that, because I approached them directly, I approached them personally. I said, guys, like, let us help you. Let us help you to help Ukraine. They're deaf, and they really, I agree with Mr. Yatsenyuk, they're really caring about only about the ratings and not about anything else. And today's speech of President Zelenskyy regarding when he was talking to Ukrainians is the best proof of that.
Thank you so much, Kira. Ambassador Herbst, I'm going to bring you in just a minute. Prime Minister Yatsenyuk has to leave in just a minute, and I want to get one last comment. I promise to bring you in. Before you go, Arseny, what's next for Ukraine in 2022? Do you expect a full-scale Russian land invasion or something short of that? What are you worrying about now?
Well, here is the thing. I want to be very frank and open with you. No one knows what's going to happen. But what I know for sure is that we will defend our country. We will fight for our independence. I was completely upset with Zelensky's statement that he delivered that's not the State of the Union when he addressed the Ukrainian people. You know, it completely contradicts to an entire Western world. The President of the United States, the Secretary of State, the General Secretary of NATO, all EU allies, everyone not just concerned, everyone strongly believes that this could be one of the most severe global European conflicts, and that Russia is ready to move into Ukraine. There are only two persons who believe that there is no reason to panic. The president of my country and Mr. Lavrov, who said we are not going to invade Ukraine. Okay, look, even Putin is silent, which is very dangerous. I do remember when the beast was completely silent in 2014, and this is a copy-case scenario. So what I believe in the future of Ukraine. I believe that we will win together with you and your support.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here with us today. Thank you for your call for unity. Thank you for your leadership. Kira, thank you. It's great to have you, and hope to have more of you next time.
God bless Ukraine and God bless the United States.
Thank you. Thank you, Arseny. See you next time. Appreciate it. John, please jump in here. So I'd love to have your perspective. Let's go back and just finish out the Poroshenko bit. So if he is convicted, what does that mean? How would Washington see that? Could you help us understand that, please?
Well, the official position that Washington has taken on this matter is that this is now a time for unity in Ukraine. And explicitly, they're saying, you have this clear danger coming from Russia, and all political forces, or almost all political forces, should get together in defense of the country. And this is at the very least an unnecessary distraction. So that is the official Washington position. But people who know Ukraine well also understand that there is a nasty history in the country of authoritarian leaders going after their opponents. And the classic example is, of course, when Yanukovych arrested Tymoshenko. Now, I think that Mr. Zelenskyy acts as a Democrat by inclination, and I'm not accusing him of being an authoritarian, but it's not a good look to be involved in a dynamic of this kind, and he should understand that. Of course, Mr. Poroshenko is not without problems in this area. When he was president, I remember the very nasty treatment that one of his opponents, then Anatoly Hrytsenko, received as Hrytsenko's bodyguards were beaten up, which also not a democratic look. So Poroshenko had problems in this area too. But I don't think that Mr. Zelenskyy improves his position by aping the worst of Poroshenko or the activity, of course, of Yanukovych.
Thanks, John. Why has the West been relatively timid on this case? Why haven't embassies in Kyiv spoken out more forcefully?
Well, I think that their principal concern, properly so, is Putin's threat to launch a large invasion of Ukraine. And they believe that it's important in Ukraine to focus on that almost exclusively, and for that matter, for the West. But again, I would not say that the West has been silent. Again, you've had the statements coming from senior State Department officials about along the lines I've described. You had a statement from the European Parliament, which was quite explicit in criticizing Bankova for this. So there have been some signs. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the recent rulings we've seen have taken place, because everyone understands that this is not a good look for Ukraine.
Great, thank you so much. So this is not a doom and gloom Ukraine event. I just want to make that clear. There are good signs, and Vitaly Shabunin tells me all the time that I need to be watching for good signs. So let's broaden this discussion. Before I do that, I want to say we invited the presidential White House to send a spokesman or a spokeswoman or spokesman. They declined to do that. This is not a beat up Bankova event. They are always welcome to express their views, but they were too busy today, and they have a big conference. Hopefully they'll be able to join us next time. So Vitaly, let's broaden this. Let's talk about what to expect in 2022. You said that there is good news today. You said there's good news on sanctions, and there's good news on the High Council of Justice. Bring us up to speed, please. And John, if you could mute, that'd be wonderful.
I just will make one step back, speaking about the Poroshenko case. And the fun part of this story, if I can tell you the fun part, is that the institutions which is now persecuting Poroshenko in very strange way are those ones which were not reformed by Poroshenko himself. And a few years ago, I was the guy who was telling the Poroshenko himself personally and his member teams who were dealing with these institutions, that guys, you were the one who will be punished by the institutions you would not like to repair now. Because if you think that you will rule forever and these institutions you do not want to repair will be hearing you forever, they will not. And you will be the guys who will be persecuted by them. And now I spent like 5 minutes sending messages for those guys. Told you. And now I'm sending the message for the Zelenskyy team. If you will not repair the institutions, if you will not make them independent, you will be the next one. And you will not be so smart as Poroshenko. And it will be very hard for you to get the Poroshenko. And it will be much more easier for the next president to put all of you in the jail, because you are not so smart as Poroshenko. You have no such many friends inside the system as Poroshenko has. So I think this case will help us at least to put our voice back on the reform of this prosecution and rebuilding the State Investigation Bureau, which was so screwed for the beginning. So all this story is like a great learning case study for everyone, for each and every president of Ukraine, that you have no other choice to protect yourself after you will step out of the power, but to reform the institutions. And now let us speak about the good part of the story of this year. So we had the historical chance for judicial reform. And with the help of the great pressure from USA government, from EU allies, we pushed this reform to the parliament. And now we have the implementation period of the reform, the beginning of the implementation period. And now we have this exact day, we have the first fruits of the reform. The key part of the reform is the rebuilding, the cleaning, the key institution in judicial system, the High Council of Justice, which has exclusive right to dismiss the judges. But this exact High Council protected the worst part of the judiciary. And this day, just today, the most awful, most corrupted guys from the High Council, the head of the High Council and his deputy, they just resigned. They were scared to speak with the Ethics Council, with international experts. They have no even a chance to explain their behavior and their decisions. That's why they just escaped. And I think
they quit, right?
They quit. Yeah, they resigned. They quit. And I think the big part of the High Council of Justice will do the same. So in this year, in 2022, we will, I hope, implement one of the most important of the Ukrainian reform, the judicial one. We will see it till the end of the year. And I'm pretty sure we will succeed in that. And maybe in a year and a half, 2 years, we will have the completely not new, but operating in another way judicial system. So I am pretty optimistic here.
You're very optimistic.
I am not so optimistic with like the Secret Service reform. I have some issues there. I'm not so optimistic in anti-corruption reform, because all of you see the awful picture with the selection of a special anti-corruption prosecution head. And
yeah, Vitaly, slow down a little bit, because you're deeply in the details. So you're optimistic about judicial reform, but so last year, I think it was late December, there was a competition to get a new specialized prosecutor. And this competition was very, very long. And it kept going and going and going. But then it was canceled at the 11th hour, like right before our Christmas. What's the latest? And are we ever going to have a specialized prosecutor?
It looks like that Office of the President has no other choice but to move forward with the competition, especially after yesterday's Blinken quote. He was very straight that president should finish with the competition. I just remind you that like 5 months ago, the president himself, I mean Zelenskyy, signed the promise for the Biden to finish with this competition. And then the office of the president, Zelenskyy, is trying to do everything possible just to dismiss the whole competition or not to put the winner in his position. But I think they have no choice to move forward with that sooner or later, because IMF money will not ever be here without fulfillment of that promise, because this promise was part of the memorandum. But my problem here is not even about anti-corruption. If I was a Russian spy inside the Ukrainian government and I was told to kill the reputation of Zelenskyy and Ukrainian power among the Western allies, I would do it in this way. Certainly, with all this competition and all stupid mistakes which Zelenskyy and his team did in this process. So my problem is that we told the office, just please guys, calm down, finish the competition. If you would like to protect your own corrupted guys, there are so many ways to do it later, through parliament, through procedures, through general prosecution decision. But in this exact competition, you promised, you gave your word. Stop it, just finish the competition. That's it. So I'm pretty optimistic here, but the biggest problem, the biggest damage has already been done for the president and the country.
Thanks a lot. Kira, I'd love to have you jump in here. What are you expecting in 2022? And I'd love for you to say something about SBU reform. I know when we last talked, the parliament was very, very, very close to passing it. Are we still stuck in the second reading, or are we closer now?
We're still stuck at the second reading. We are a little bit closer. However, right now, the political situation is changing so fast that I wouldn't be giving any promises on this matter, like on what would happen. I'm like, as the way that Vitaly is very deep inside the anti-corruption reform, I'm very deep inside the political movements here and there. And I could tell you that SBU as one of the key reforms would be the price and the exchange coin for many political groups and powers that will be used just to gain to gain certain political points. And this is scary. However, I think going back to the general political matter, the main thing that will have the influence on how that 2022 will look for Ukraine is obviously how the situation with Russia will resolve itself. My biggest concern right now is the northern direction that was not protected at all. However, all the oppositional forces and all the normal and adequate people were suggesting, and right now it's basically open borders for Putin. I'm from the western part of Ukraine. I'm from the border with Slovakia, and I could tell you we are not protected there, but we have forests there at least. And on the border with Belarus, we don't have a forest, we have bushes.
Yeah.
And there is really bushes, so and free paths, and it's 4 hours from the borders there to Kyiv, and we have received very threatening information about the moving forces to the northern borders. The key point here is once Lukashenko switched, they completely switched. Everybody was very optimistic on that he will remain a dictator that tries to be not even democratic, but the dictator that tries to maintain the relations with the West. That was a very, I think, naive hope. So once he totally flipped, and this happened at the middle of the last year, what Ukraine was supposed to do and what we were very active on speaking is invest in building our northern border. Mm-hmm. That was not done, and right now what we are seeing is that right now we have what we have. So Verkhovna Rada is not working. The parliament is not working for the last 3 weeks, and it's probably the longest vacation that we've had since the beginning of times, which is also questioning because prosecuting Poroshenko at in these questionable times, having Verkhovna Rada on vacation in these questionable times, and president not giving the nation the speech for like 30 days or something, it's all together. I would support Vitaly saying, if I were a spy in the president's office, that would be exactly what my plan would be. And I'm sorry for saying that, but this is how it looks. So, right, what we understand what we need to do right now. Okay, I'm sharing the same thing that I shared today with Ambassador Herbst and the team when we had another Atlantic Council event. Thank you so much for having me there. We have special agents on the different borders that were giving us the information. And on November 1st, they were saying he's gathering the troops, but he's not ready yet. On December 1st, I received the same message. A couple of days ago, I received that he is ready right now. And so that's why we are so concerned, because we understand that the threat is real right now. And Tony Blinken's visit to Kyiv was both a message of stop fighting inside yourself, please find peace and unite the forces. And I think it worked on the different levels, really worked. At least I know politicians who change their mind right now. On the second way, on the second angle, it's been a great sign and help that both situation is really serious, and that we will receive more and more help. However, on the inside of Ukraine, there are so many operational issues. Yep. Again, related to the inability of Zelenskyy to build a strong system that would actually work right now, when it's not in a manual manual operating mode, when he has to check everything. That right now, even when we receive the weaponry, then it's like a super complicated process of getting it
To the
to
right
the place, and
places.
then the place, then to train the people, etc., etc. So for like 2.5 and maybe more years, the system was not built so that right now we can accept all the help. Though, thank you so much for giving it to us, and we need to receive as much as possible right now to be able to protect ourselves. There is a good
Thank you,
thing that
Kira.
I see as a hope. Just one quick thing is on the local levels, there are many territorial defense troops that are getting together and are being operated under the local government, so that they're getting ready to be sent to the east or north if it's needed to be. And we were just organizing parts of those.
Super, thank you. That's a really important point. I'd love to dig in on the resistance point. I want to bring Ambassador Herbst in, but before I do, if you're just joining us, I have 3 great guests. We're talking about what to expect in Ukraine in 2022, excuse me, and we'd love your questions. You can put them in the Zoom chat or send them on Twitter, and I will read them and send them to the right person. So, Ambassador Herbst, what are you expecting in Ukraine in 2022?
Look, I am not just an equal opportunity critic. I'm an equal opportunity praiser. And I think that, in fact, Zelensky's done a very good job dealing with the whole ball of security issues that he's had to deal with over the past 6 or 8 months. I understand the criticism that he has not been warning the Ukrainian people about a Russian invasion, but I understand that he's where it counts, meaning within the security services, they're taking the right steps to prepare. I also think that his somewhat blasé public stance is a very good message to Putin that he will not be intimidated. Because I think that Putin's real objective is to achieve his goals by threats and not by invasion. But then there's the last point where I think Zelensky has been especially skillful. The administration here has made dreadful mistakes on Nord Stream 2. And in making those dreadful mistakes, caving not just to Germany, but also to Russia, and caving multiple times, not just in May when they waived the sanctions, but in July with that dreadful joint statement, and then refusing to follow up on their promises when Moscow began to manipulate gas for political purposes. Washington wanted Zelensky to shut up. And Zelensky was courageous and smart and refused. We know that's one of the reasons why it took till late August for Zelensky to get his invitation to Washington when Congress was not in session. And Zelensky has defended, I would say, not just Ukraine's interests, but Western interests by reaching out to Congress and working with Congress against Nord Stream 2. And this is pushing the administration in the direction it should not have to be pushed. In other words, Zelensky is doing his job for the benefit, not just of Ukraine, but the West. So I think that this needs to be understood very clearly. Now, what's coming up next this year? I've already given my view that I think that Putin does really not want to invade Ukraine, because again, I'm an equal opportunity critic and praiser, and the measures that Biden has put together that he and the West will take against Russia if Russia goes in are enough to give Putin cause to pause. Yes, Russia has a sovereign wealth fund of $600 billion. That's a nice war chest. But if he goes into Ukraine, as he's promised, and we lower the boom by taking out 2 or 3 Russian banks, better yet, sanctioning the Russian secondary debt market, that's going to lead to a substantial drop in Russian GDP, and that will happen on an annual basis. And Putin doesn't want that. Putin also does not want NATO to move more forces to the east, and this will happen. Now, I'm not telling you, therefore, Putin will not invade. He may yet decide to make that choice, although I think if he does, he'll invade in a relatively small way, hoping that the European Union will not be interested in sanctions. But I am confident that the Biden administration will persuade in quotation marks, the European Union to do the right thing if Putin decides just to take Mariupol, for example.
Thanks, John. I'm still willing to take your money if you want to lose a bet with me. So
well, that's fine.
Vitaly and Kira, one thing that we're really hearing, so many of us who are watching this follow Ukraine, but we haven't been able to travel there because of the COVID situation. We have a fellow named Vladislav Davidson who's in Kyiv now, and he just wrote a very interesting piece for us. He said the mood is strange in Kyiv. He said that if you try to talk to people about the war, they either say, no, we don't want to talk about it. We've been here for 8 years, or they're fatalistic. If Russia's coming, it's going to come. What's the mood like as you understand it, Vitaly? Is that accurate?
It depends from the people or bubble you are speaking with. I don't see such a mood in my bubble. Maybe it's because my bubble is a strange one. Maybe because of that. But as we see here in Ukraine, in my bubble, everyone is prepared. Everyone understands what he or she will do, what exact efforts will his or her family will be in. So that part of society which is pretty active, I mean politically or NGO or society active, they do understand what they will do in any kind of bad scenario, like invasion, cyber attacks, anything. To speak about the general public, it's not to me, it's hard. Due to the sociology you are speaking about, the Ukrainians are ready to fight, but the problem is only army can fight against another army. It's not about people who are ready to fight. It's not about the local self-defense forces. Army should be ready to fight. And I am pretty sure from our sources the army is ready. But we should, if it will be the worst scenario, the political leadership will be really needed for the country. And I will hope this exact government will be much more effective in the leadership. The problem is that this government, this political elite thinks that they are like a genius in communication, which is under the big question. Maybe they're a good one in like entertainment communication, maybe as an expert, but they are really dumb in political or like leadership communication, which is shown by a few last cases. I hope they will learn from their mistakes and will do their job much better than they're doing in this exact case.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Kira, what's the mood like where you sit? And you said that you're from Uzhgorod?
Uzhgorod, right.
Yeah. So
yeah.
If you have it, I'd love to know if your mom or any of your relatives have told you what the mood's like there as well. Bring that into the discussion too.
So I traveled to see all my relatives, obviously, on Christmas holidays. And right now, the members of my party, along with the British MPs, are actually in Kramatorsk just right now, and I'm receiving the messages from them. So for the western part, they think that, okay, we already sent all our boys to war, we will send them again, we know how to do it. It's more on again on a psychological level, like let's get ready, let's get prepared. I have 3 cousins who were at war and they came back, and they will go and fight again, and they are ready. They told me we are very ready. I again agree that the army should fight. However, the resistance, the training of the resistance, and giving opportunity for the resistance to train is part of this social of lowering down the social situation, when people have where they can throw their worries to, so they would go and train. And this happens because there was a really informational vacuum from the, I think, New Year still right now. So we basically learn on what happens from the Western media, and this was really unacceptable, and this created this tension and these worries. So at the eastern part, where my colleague is right now with the British MPs, she says the situation is much more critical, just on the matter that people are buying food in advance. They said, we know how to live during the escalation, and we really don't like it. Some people, especially from the border, they just moving their families, because my friends from the American embassy here in Ukraine said that they were also advised to move or at least get on a call where they would be explained what services could be provided if the situation will be critical. So I was like, just before this, I was at a TV show where they had this poll, you know, when people are calling saying, are you really worried or not? It's not a real actual poll, but like around 5,000 people called and it was 50-50. Like honestly, it's rare when it's 50-50, because it's usually, you know, it's TV where they are trying to put you to say something. So it's 50-50. What I see right now is what is happening and what needs to happen is people should be given a way to all these worries to be taken to any kind of action. So then what President said, and it was, I agree, it was a really poor messaging. Why? Because our nation is completely distrust. Our people are not completely trusting the president and the government. And when you are telling them, do not go to the shops and do not buy food and warm clothing, this is exactly what people are doing, because they think, okay, we've been, and then when they're telling hryvnia is a stable currency, don't go to the bank and don't take your money from the bank. This is exactly what people are doing. So the media take on the situation should have been completely different, and never mentioning, just don't do this, this is this. We have seen it. I have seen it myself when they were saying, oh, don't go to the banks, hryvnia is a very stable currency, and then we lost tons of money. So what we see right now is like, I think the small regions of panic, which is not significant. However, if these messaging from the government continue, that will create a problem, because they're creating it.
Thank you, Kira. Thank you so much. So we have less than 20 minutes left. I have 16 minutes. Vitaly Shabunin is so tired that he's having his 8th cup of coffee. I gotta mix this up. So guys, we call this blitz round. I'm going to fire questions at you, and I want nice short answers. So John Herbst, you get the first one. Please put on your ambassador hat and tell us, if you were giving advice right now, what advice would you have to build national unity? What concrete things should Zelensky's team be doing and the embassies in Kyiv?
I think if you're talking about national unity in Ukraine, the obvious step would be to assemble all the heads of the political parties, or nearly all of them, to discuss the current crisis, and for all to pledge their unity to the country and their best efforts to ensure that A, Putin does not invade, and B, if he does, he pays a very, very heavy price.
Super. Thank you so much. Vitaly, this is from Bob Homans, who's a great expert. He says, Vitaly and Kira, you are two of the most courageous people I've ever seen. Fighting corruption is a dangerous business. Vitaly, you know this firsthand. My question, I've heard reports that President Zelenskyy wants to do electronic online voting in the next election. I know you want to talk about this. If that's true, what do you think of this idea? Vitaly, and then Kira, please.
It's an existential threat for the state. And
why?
Because it's impossible to protect IT system from cyber attack from Ukraine. I think any other country in the world did not succeed into. So it's existential threat if they will try to move it this way, and they're trying to move here. And there is like a discussion and in preparation inside the government for the online e-voting. We will try to do everything possible to stop them. From two arguments. The first one, it is impossible to protect the infrastructure from Russian cyber attacks. It took 3 days to get the government websites back online. It was not a system, just a website. So they have no chance to protect their infrastructure from cyber attacks. And I just want to remind you about the Joe Biden electronic sign, who signed the petition on the side of the Ukrainian president. So the system of the voting on the president's side was scrutinized, and no one was punished for that. So it's a great danger from the presidential side to move with this idea. Moreover, if I was a Russian spy inside his team, I will put the guy to move with this idea, and I will sell this idea to the president that if you will do it, all young voters will vote for you. And it's true. but there is a Russian threat. So it's an existential threat for Ukraine.
Gotcha. Thank you. Kira, any other thoughts?
Yes. So as we have seen for the last couple of days, there has been a tryout of the hybrid war of the cyber attacks that were done on Ukrainian nuclear stations, on Ukrainian key infrastructure points that were like identified as there was an attempt to attack, but nobody was reporting on did the attack successful, or like what steps has been taken to prevent from the next attacks. I have been working in IT for 20 years, and I really, really want to digitalize Ukraine. However, if you ask me if there is one point that I will take a bullet for, is that Ukraine would not have electronic elections, because the threat is real, and the threat would be both for the getting the power and using it, and to having like the open doors for Russia to meddle with these elections. So right now we should concentrate like all the efforts that we have on cybersecurity in protecting what we have right now. And I had told the minister a couple of times this needs to be done.
Thank you so much. Okay, John, I want your opinion on this as well. So this is to all three of you guys. This is from Andrew Denary. We can start with Vitaly, then Kira, then John. To all of you, what's on your reform wish list in 2022? Vitaly, what would you like to see happen? And but within the political reality?
The implementation of judicial reform is the most important one. The second one is at least voting for the real Secret Service reform, which is not in place now. The ending of the competition with the chief of Anti-Corruption Prosecution Office, and the beginning and ending the process of the competition on the new NABU director. So these three things.
That's a lot. Okay, very good. Kira?
Agreeing on the SBU reform. Second one is the tax reform that we have been worked for a long time on, lowering the taxes, and we think that we'll be able to pass it right now. The third one is the amendments to the corporate governance reform, killing the so-called anti-oligarch laws, and I don't know if you heard of this new idea of the president's office of having additional organ, which is called 777, where they would be making different changes to how the operational part is executing. So instead of what they have right now, they would have 350 people that will be working directly with the president and taking his orders. This is the new idea, and we would be fighting against it. So my reform wishes again is against most of the things, and only two reforms that I think will be able to pass.
Thank you, Kira. We do not know anything about 777, so I hope you will write a blog for us, or someone will. Yeah, we would love to hear more about that. John, I know you're not Ukrainian. I'm not asking you to pretend to be Ukrainian, but if you were giving advice, what would be on your reform wish list?
I'm a realist. I would say if the Ukrainian government, the Rada, Zelenskyy, are able to make real judicial reform this year, that would be a huge achievement, which would easily have the most benefit for Ukraine in the long run. So I will focus just on that.
Okay, super. We have a comment from our friend Rebecca Harms. She says, hi, and she says, I don't have a question, but a recommendation. She said there's a great piece in the German papers by Katyana Mishenko, and she says the title is, Am I Panicking Enough? Really a must read and should be translated into English if it hasn't been done so far. Send that our way, Rebecca. It sounds like something that Ukraine Alert would like to publish. I'd love to have a look at that. Kira, you wrote a piece for us about pressure on independent media. Are there any updates on this, and has the pressure let up at all?
The pressure has not been let up. And the more we are talking to different journalists, and I'm speaking with many of them, the more we hear that there have been threats. There have been different attempts on making people who are openly saying the truth and criticizing the power to shut up. So the Ukrainian government changed the approach of how they execute on their media strategy. So they're now creating more and more controlled channels, TV channels, where they are executing on their own messages. So what happened recently is the Ukrainian internal parliamentary TV channel that was honestly the most boring thing that you could ever imagine. Like, because it was just people boo, 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 but it was open and free for everybody. So
What was it called?
Rada,
Okay.
like the Rada channel. So
it is boring. I agree with you.
Yeah. But you can, but whoever you are, you could come there and you can say whatever you want, and they will let you live, even if you're opposition, coalition, etc. So the last independent thing that happened there is, Andrei Antonenko, who was prosecuted for Sheremetyevo killing, etc., along with his team. We organized his speech at the Rada channel. That was the last thing that they allowed us to do. Then they switched the way the Rada channel is operating from free for all to only saying what the President Zelenskyy wants to hear. So when I'm coming on the briefing inside the parliament and saying blah blah blah, this is what I think is being done wrong, they're just they silencing me, and they're putting the advertising on top of what I'm saying, or saying, and now you will hear something from the President Zelenskyy. This is happening, and this is happening in Ukrainian parliament right now. We had different consultations, and they said, no, this is what we want to do, and and you can oppose this, but this is how the things will end up. And this is expanding and this is on people's expense, because it's
taxpayer funded.
Yes, yep. This is tax-based funding. They are opening and buying additional TV channels where they created the list of what you can or cannot talk about, and these channels, it's very sweet. And these lists are already public, and people are talking about it, that you cannot say the words Yermak, you cannot say the word Zelensky, you cannot say that Russia is enemy, you only can say that the Putin is enemy, but the Russians are our friendly and brother nation.
Okay.
And this is true. It's public on the web, and I have been on different TV shows.
Thank you. That's definitely something to watch. Vitaly, you are a civil society activist. There's been a lot of people have been talking about pressure on independent media. How does it feel from where you sit as a civil society activist?
Friends, there is many problems in Ukraine, but there is no pressure in the media on Ukraine, even for those one which should be pressure. Those one which is used by Russian government, but there is no any problem with like a pressure or independent of the speech. There are problems with using the effectiveness of the state-owned media. Maybe they are trying from the presidential team to create their own media, which are not successful, these attempts. But there is no pressure for the media, frankly speaking.
Okay, we may have a difference of opinion. I got a new question for Ambassador Herbst. Do you have any thoughts on the new Senate bill introduced by Senator Menendez called Defending Ukraine Sovereignty Act of 2022? What's in that, and would it help Ukraine now?
Look, the principal purpose of the Menendez bill was to provide cover for Senate Democrats who refused to vote to override Biden's unfortunate waiver of sanctions on Nord Stream 2. It's meant as political theater. The way the bill reads, apart from the main story, which I just told, is pretty good. But if they want to make clear that this is going to help Ukraine, the Menendez bill needs to be put together in cooperation with the Republicans, so it's seen as bipartisan.
Okay. Super, John. Thank you so much. Vitaly, I have the last question for you. So in the West, we've been watching Ukraine's new anti-oligarch bill, and we would love your views. So critics say it's unconstitutional and it will be used against political opponents. The president's office says, of course, that it's awesome and that it will finally deal with Ukraine's oligarchs. Who's right?
This bill will not work at all. There is only one way to fight with oligarchs: anti-monopoly, antitrust legislation, and anti-monopoly committees institution. This law does not work with any part of that. So we should fight with oligarchs with an implementation of judicial reform and then repairing the antitrust committee in Ukraine. That will work. The institutions can fight with oligarchs, not such kind of bills.
Super. Thank you so much for joining us. I've had Vitaly Shabunin from the Anti-Corruption Action Center. Thank you for joining us and staying up late. I've had Kira Rudik from the Holos Party and Ambassador John Herbst. Thank you for following our Ukraine work. We look forward to hosting you for a discussion on the 25th. And this is 6 scenarios in which Russia may go into Ukraine. We look forward to seeing you then. Until then, take care and good evening.